Get ready for the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi everyone, how are you? I hope all of you are in a good health. And now we will explain about our presentation, and the title is Independent Clause. Do you know about the independent clause and dependent clause? If you don't know, don't worry, we will find out in the moment. But now we are very grateful. Why? Because all of you haven't take your time to pay attention in our presentation. But before that, please invite us to introduce ourselves.
Hello, my name is Nibaho. I'm from Group 8.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Haikal Ririh Widyandaru and I'm from Group 8.
Hi everyone, my name is Dwinda Laela Anggun Sari.
Hello, my name is Dewa Ramadan. I'm from Group 8.
And before we getting to studying independent and dependent clause, I think we must know what is the purpose of studying independent and dependent clause. The purpose of studying independent and dependent clause are: first, we must know what is the complex sentence. And the second, after we studying independent and dependent clause, we can know what is difference between independent and dependent clause themselves. And the last, finally, we can find out how to use independent. And now I will explain you what is complex sentence. Complex sentence is a sentence that is composed one or more dependent clause and a single independent clause. Dependent clause is known as a subordinate clause, and an independent clause is a complex sentence, unlike a dependent clause that defeats the others of clause to express the complex idea. And a sentence called complex sentence if it contains two clauses. There is a dependent clause and independent clause. And a complex sentence only differ from a compound sentence in that a complex sentence just has one independent clause, while a compound sentence has two or more independent clause. And I will further clarify the meaning of compound sentence. What is compound sentence? Compound sentence is a sentence just has more than one independent clause, and at least just have one dependent clause. And now I have two examples about complex sentence. 1. The human brain never stops working until you stand up to speak in the public. The human brain never stop working is independent clause, and until he stand up to speak up in the public is a dependent clause. And the second, when he handed his homework, he forgot to hand the teacher at the last stage. When he handed his homework is a dependent clause, and he forgot to hand the teacher after the last stage is a independent clause. Now I have 2 examples about compound sentence. 1. She goes to the beach and she takes her cat. She goes to the beach is a independent clause, and she takes her cat is a dependent clause. And 2. They speak in English and he responds in Spanish. They speak in English is a independent clause, and he respond in Spanish is a dependent clause. Well, I will explain you about definition about independent clause. What is independent clause? Independent clause is a clause that can stand on by its own by itself. It doesn't need to be adjoined to any other clause. Why? Because it contains all the information necessary to be a complete sentence. Do you know independent clause have 3 complements? 1. They have a subject. They tell the readers what the sentence is about. 2. They have an action or predicate. They tell the readers what the subject is doing. And 3. They express a complete thought. It's such as something happening or was said.
Alright, an independent clause can be as simple as subject and verb. For example, Jim reads. Jim is the subject and reads an action verb. According to the third component of the independent clause, now the reader knows that Jim loves to read a book. Alright, independent clauses can also be joined to the other independent clause if independent clauses are related. However, they must be joined using the proper punctuation. I'll give you an example. Can you read this? Jim read a book. He really enjoyed the book. We know that the first clause is an independent clause. Jim as the subject, read as the action verb, and book as the object. As same as the first one, the second clause is an independent clause. He as the subject, really enjoyed as the action verb, and book as the object. Some common of independent clauses markers are also, consequently, furthermore, however, moreover, nevertheless, and therefore. Alright, I think that's all my explanation about independent clause. For your time and attention, I say thank you very much.
Dependent clause defined. A dependent clause is clause that does not express a complete thought. Dependent clause must be joined to another clause in order to avoid creating a sentence fragment. Because I forgot my homework. This is a sentence fragment. We have a because but not a why or anything accompanying and following what happened because they forgot. The important thing to remember is that the dependent clause does not on its own as a complete thought. Some common dependent markers are after, although, as if, because, before, even if, even though, if, in order to, since, though, unless, until, whatever, when, whenever, whether, and while. Independent and dependent clauses practice exercise. Determine whether the bold-faced group of words is an independent or dependent clause. 1. Fred took a nap before he left for his friend's house. The answer is independent clause because it could stand on its own as a complete sentence. Thank you.
And now I will to tell you guys about example of independent and dependent sentence. We can give the example. The first example is the fish kept circling slowly. It's an independent clause. And then the hands cure quickly. It's also an independent sentence. And we move to dependent, the example of the dependent text. We have when he had seen the golden doodle leave the yard. It's an dependent. Okay, and we move to the conclusion. Okay, now it's the conclusion time, and from all you know that my friend explained, we can conclude that from the language of complex sentences and their use, it can be concluded that complex sentence consists of clauses, namely independent clause or main sentence and dependent clause, additional sentence, and independent clause, which is an idea sentence which can stand alone and be equated like a simple sentence, while the dependent clause or additional sentence is an additional sentence that cannot stand and requires an independent clause which is added with a conjunction. So that becomes a complex sentence. I think that's my group conclusion. Thank you. Back to moderator. Thanks.
And now we know about what is independent clause, what is dependent clause, what is complex sentence, what is compound sentence, and I have given you a little example about that. Maybe it's all about our presentation. We apologize if something goes wrong. Maybe it's all about our presentation. We hope this video will be useful, and hopefully we can apply independent and dependent clause or compound or complex sentence in other lesson. Thanks for your attention. I hope you have a nice day, and see you.